So hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's information session, Call 5 for Interreg Northwest Europe funding. My name is Sarah Davrin and I'm the National Contact Point. And my role is to inform and support applicants to this funding. So we're going to have a 1-hour webinar today, and you're going to hear about the background of Interreg funding in Ireland and the basics of the currently open call for proposals, as well as how to get advice and how to find partners for your project idea. So look, before we start, I'll just ask please to turn off all the cameras and ensure your microphones are on mute. However, we do encourage questions through the Q&A button that you can see. Please don't use the chat for the questions because there's a lot of people here, so we'd ask please to use the Q&A for the questions. We'll have time to answer those questions after the speaker presentations at around 10:45, 11:15. So please note, of course, that this session is being recorded. And of course, the recording as well as the slides will be made available through the Southern Regional Assembly website in the coming week. So to start the day, we're joined by the Director of the Southern Regional Assembly, David Kelly. The Southern Regional Assembly has been the managing authority for EU-funded regional programmes and for Interreg funding for over 20 years now. David is particularly familiar with the Interreg Northwest Europe programme, as he's been a member of the Monitoring Committee. So I'd just say welcome, David, and thank you for taking the first session of today's webinar. You can go ahead and share your screen, please.
No problem. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Sarah. Thanks for that. Just give me a second out while I get my slides up, and I hope this works for everyone. Let me know if they're coming up okay there.
Perfect, thank you.
Visible, great stuff. Okay. Well, look, good morning, everyone. And as Sarah said, look, you're all very welcome to, I suppose, this information session on the fifth call for the Northwest Europe programme. As Sarah said, look, over the course of the morning, you get an opportunity to hear about the key messages about the programme and the specific features of the fifth call, which is an open call. And also then, I suppose, Sarah will share some, I suppose, good practice examples on what makes a good project, how to put your projects together, and so on. As Sarah said, look, I've been involved in EU funding for quite a number of years. I'm the Director of the Regional Assembly now for a number of years. We've been managing authority of EU programmes, but I also have a role in the Northwest Europe programme. I sit on the Monitoring Committee as one of the Irish reps and currently hold the chair of the programme. Maybe just very quickly for those who may not be as familiar of the regional assemblies, we're one of 3 regional assemblies in Ireland. We were established in 2014, 2015 as part of the Local Government Reform Act. And I suppose our main function is around regional development, sustainable regional development. And I suppose that integration of EU funding, EU policy at the regional level. I suppose we deliver this through 3 main ways, I suppose. One is through the statutory regional, spatial and economic strategy. One is through the management and delivery of EU-funded regional programmes. And then, as I said, as our role in European territorial cooperation or Interreg. I suppose in terms of the regional strategies, each of the regional assemblies had a statutory responsibility to develop a regional strategy to effectively translate the national planning framework and I suppose the key objectives of government to regional level. So I suppose to really translate those into regional level to, I suppose, redress the balance of growth across the country in a plan-led way. That's really the key objective, to redress the balance of growth. Obviously, the NPF is under review at the moment, so once that is all complete, we'll have to move on into the next phase of reviewing our regional strategies. But in terms of the current strategy, specifically for the Southern region, I would say it's built on 3 key pillars, 3 key high-level objectives. One is to I suppose, make the Southern region the most creative and innovative region in Europe, to be the most green region in Europe, and also the most livable region in Europe. And this, I suppose, takes into account the fact that our population is going to grow by, between 350, 400,000 people over the next number of years. We have to, I suppose, set a framework for where they're going to live, work, travel to work and so on, but also to do that in a way that is sustainable, that takes into account, I suppose, our climate change challenges, to transition to a low carbon economy, but also, I suppose, to have a really good, attractive, livable place, livable region for people to live and work in. I suppose overall, at a high level, you can see that the key objectives within the regional strategy align very well with the high level policy objectives at EU level in terms of creating, I suppose, a competitive, smart regions, the low carbon transition, regions closer to the citizens, and so on. In terms of our regional programme functions, as Sarah said, we've been a managing authority now for over 20 years. And I suppose there's always been a very strong alignment between cohesion policy and regional development in Ireland. And through, I suppose, 4 successive regional programmes now at this stage, we have invested, I suppose, significant amount of funding across the region in areas like, I suppose, research and innovation, specifically through our third level institutes, in job creation through the local enterprise office and the micro enterprise schemes, in energy efficiency, in urban development, and so on. And the current programme accounts for about 660 million investment over the next 5 to 6 years, and 40% from the EU. And I suppose the 3 key areas that we're investing this money is, again, very much aligned to the regional strategy objectives and the EU objectives in terms of smarter, more competitive regions, in energy efficiency, and also in, I suppose, improving our urban environment through sustainable urban development. As we said, look, we also have a very strong role in ETC, in Interreg, and I suppose that's the key purpose of today's session. Over the years, Interreg has increased in importance and significance as part of EU cohesion policy. From where it began in the early 90s as a small community initiative, it's now, I suppose, a key pillar within cohesion policy. And, you know, that has been strengthened in the 21-27 period. There's about 10 billion of investment across all of the Interreg programmes. And my sense is that as we move into post-27, the discussions and conversations are already happening in that it will increase in significance again. There are 3 strands to Interreg, and Ireland participates in all 3 strands. So you have the cross-border. Currently, it's the Peace Plus programme. Only previously we had a maritime cross-border programme with Ireland and Wales as well, but that's no longer in place. We participate in the transnational programmes. So we have Northern Periphery and Arctic, Atlantic Area, and of course the Northwest Europe programme, which is the biggest of the transnational programmes. And then we participate in the interregional programme, which involves all member states. And look, I suppose the key thing about Interreg is it creates a really good opportunity to address shared challenges, shared issues, by building partnerships and collaboration and cooperation with our partners all across Europe. And look, historically, Ireland has always done quite well through the Interreg programmes. Back in 2018, the regional assemblies carried out, I suppose, an impact study on how well we've done or what the impact of Interreg has been to Ireland over the years. Now, I know it's a few years out of date. We probably need to update it. But look, if you just a very quick look at it, it demonstrates that, look, nearly every county in Ireland has either been involved as a partner or has received funding throughout the history of Interreg. And, you know, I'd say if we did an updated study on that now, that would only increase. And you can see the significant amounts of funding which has come to Ireland through Interreg. And this slide here, this map here, just illustrates, I suppose, even during the current call of Northwest Europe, which Ireland again has always done very, very well. You can see that the map of Ireland is coming out very, very strongly. That, you know, Irish partners have been quite successful in the applications to date, and Irish partners, I suppose, they're quite sought after in terms of participation in Interreg and Northwest Europe programme more generally. Again, this slide here just reiterates that. You can see the number of projects that have been approved and the number of projects that have been approved with Irish partners across all 3 calls, and also the level of funding. I suppose if you look at maybe the high levels in the southern region and the Eastern and Midland region, a lot of that is down to the fact that that's where the third level, the universities are located, but the impact of that spreads out much wider. Maybe just, I suppose, draw your attention to, I suppose, one other stat on it is maybe the low level of lead partners in Ireland. And again, look, we would encourage Irish partners to put their hands up to become lead partners. I know that involvement in Interreg and specifically lead partner functions can be maybe considered quite heavy, quite onersome. But look, that's why we have Sarah, we have the JS, we have Elaine to assist and support in your activities in all of that. So look, my final message here now is really just to engage in this session, but also engage in the call over the next number of months, because it really is a really good opportunity to get involved, to, I suppose, get funding to deliver on what you want to do, but also to build partners and networks across Europe that can be long lasting into the future. So with that, Sarah, I'll hand back to yourself.
Thanks, David. Yeah, that was a really nice overview. It is useful to understand how all this story of Interreg funding, how it fits into the Irish regional strategy and how it fits in that bigger EU level cohesion policy picture, and to get a feel for the benefits to Irish citizens in general. So now we can move, so thanks for that. We'll move on maybe to our next speaker on the agenda, Helena Schabasser. She's coming from the Joint Secretariat Office for Interreg Northwest Europe in Lille in France. So Helena is a member of the Project Development Unit, and she works closely with the network of national contact points, of which I'm a member. Elena has a lot of experience in the design and the selection and the monitoring of Interreg Northwest Europe projects. So thanks, Elena, for joining us. You can go ahead and share your screen. It looks good to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, as Sarah already mentioned, I'm here today to introduce our program in a few words. And I will also focus on introducing the priorities that we have, so you get an idea where you could possibly fit in with your idea. And also I will tell you on requirements for the partnerships in our projects, and finally the structure of a Northwest Europe project. So you get an idea of how you're going to have to package and frame your project idea to make it fit the program expectations. Yeah, first off, a few key figures. The Northwest Europe program area covers 7 countries. So we have the west of Germany, the north of France. In between, we have the Netherlands, Luxembourg, and Belgium. We have Switzerland, and of course, Ireland, with all counties covered. As for the partnerships, we are a transnational program. And so the one really important thing is to respect the partnership minimum, which is 3 partners from 3 different countries. Partners from outside the Northwest Europe area are allowed, but it has to be well justified. On the financial side, our program has a total budget of 310 billion euros, and 287 euros of that are exclusively dedicated to project funding. And approved projects, they receive a 60% reimbursement of their costs. So we have a 60% co-financing rate, means 60% of costs are covered. 40% will have to be covered by each partner or by a national or regional co-funding scheme. Some of you are probably experienced in Interreg, and you know that reporting costs can come with an administrative effort for sure. And this is also why in the current period we have tried to simplify, along with other Interreg programs, simplify the reporting of costs, and we work much more with flat rates and other simplified cost options in this period. But I suppose that's more interesting for you once your project passes the step 1 improvement. Then in the step 2 phase, you have a closer look at the budget and detail it. For now, more interesting are certainly our program priorities. So as I said, you can see where you might fit in. We have 5 program priorities. And we have a big green focus. So our first 3 priorities are green priorities. Number 1 is climate and environment. Here we have 2 specific objectives, which are focused on climate adaptation and disaster risk management. So we're talking about water management, risk preparedness, sustainable water management, ecosystem-based approaches, and so on. Then we have SO 2.7, which is nature protection and biodiversity, where we invite projects to implement, for example, green-blue infrastructure solutions, and make sure to maintain and preserve the biodiversity that we have. Ecosystem services are welcome to be developed. The recovery of protection and biodiversity is the main goal here. For priority 2, we focus on energy transition. It's a twofold priority, namely, on the one hand, we approve projects to contribute to improving energy efficiency. And on the other hand, we invite projects to further develop renewable energy technologies. All sorts of renewable energy you can imagine: hydrogen, biomass, solar, wind, yeah. And not only the technological side of it, but also the procurement and financing schemes that have to come with it. It's all covered and welcome in our program. And also for the energy efficiency, so I forgot to say, we also fund projects focused on energy communities and on community efforts and citizen involvement in the energy transition. For priority 3, we focus on circular economy. So it's all about not only making material use more eco-friendly, but also trying to avoid waste, increasing and improving recycling, and that too in all fields and all industries you could imagine. We are quite open here. I cannot go much into detail, unfortunately, but yeah, I hope you get a bit of an idea of our topics, and if you're interested or you think one of them might be suitable, you can check our fact sheets on the website. Those are 2 pages, one for each specific objective, and if you want to, later on, when you have chosen a specific objective, you're going to have to read in the IP, the Interreg program document. It's also on our website, to make sure that, as I said, package everything and fit everything into the scheme of the Northwest Europe program. Moving on to priority 4, it's our priority for innovation and resilience. We do get quite a few research-oriented projects here. Project submissions, and it's a popular or a common reason to I would say to fail. Or what I'm trying to say is we are not a research program. There are other EU programs focusing on research. Northwest Europe as a transnational program is really focused on applying the research and applying advanced technologies and the uptake of advanced technologies in this case. And topic-wise, we focus on trying to solve challenges that come with demographic change, transport, mobility, housing, and here priority 4 is really about tackling those challenges with the tools that digitalization gives us. And lastly, we have priority 5, which is threefold, 3 different SOs here. Globally, priority 5 is dedicated to vulnerable groups. So it's all about improving access for vulnerable groups, on the one hand, to employment, here under SO 4.1. The list of vulnerable groups is detailed in our IP, but I can give you a bit of an idea. We're talking about young people, disabled people, single parents, and so on, to improve quality employment possibilities for those groups. And that too varies across regions. In some regions, it's even harder for vulnerable groups to access the employment And so you always have to keep the territorial aspect in mind. So we're focusing on rural areas, remote areas here. For ISO 4.5, it's all about access to healthcare. People living in rural area will know access to healthcare is a bit more difficult there, and especially again for vulnerable groups such as elderly people, disabled people, single parent families, and so on. And finally, ISO 4.6 is about making culture and tourism more inclusive. So we welcome projects that develop and implement eco-friendly tourism that is also inclusive and for vulnerable groups. So that much for the priorities that we have. Now moving on to the project partnership. As I mentioned, we have some requirements here. Not only just 3 partners from 3 different countries, which is the minimum. One requirement is also that 2 of the partners have to be at least from the Northwest Europe area that you see here on the map. Then the lead partner has to be from the Northwest Europe area, cannot be from outside. And the lead partner must also be a public organization or governed by public law or an NGO. If you cover these 3 criteria, you're already doing very well in terms of eligibility criteria. Here we have a little screenshot of our website. You find the list of eligibility criteria here in the left corner. And as I said, if you cover the partnership criteria, you covered most of the eligibility criteria, and the rest is just formalities like submitting on time and filling in all forms in the application form. If you pass the eligibility check, your project application is actually going to be read and assessed against the assessment criteria, which you find here. So keep those in mind, have a close look, double check, reread if you're fulfilling those criteria. And it will give you a good chance to pass step 1. Back to the partnership in general, who can participate in our projects? You might have heard the term quadruple helix, which is just a way to say that there are 4 groups in society that are useful when you want to change something, when you want to achieve change in society. And that's public organizations, private organizations, research and academia, and civil society. For private organizations, of course, we have financial checks, and SMEs would need to provide financial documents from the last 2 years, but Sarah will guide you through that process and tell you what to do. We have 3 different types of partners, let's say. Okay, we have the lead partners and project partners, which are central to the project. They all have an active role. They all contribute. It can vary over the project time span, but they all contribute important parts. They all have a budget. And because they all have a budget, they all have a controller that checks the expenditures incurred and decides whether they are eligible or not. And on that basis, you get reimbursed. So yeah, all partners, lead partner and project partners, have to follow the program rules, which are laid down in our program manual, also on the website available. And they have one common document that lays out the rules of cooperation in the partnership, which is the partnership agreement, and they all sign it. And then, on the other hand, you have a bit more remote partners, which are, well, we call them associated organizations. They don't have an active role in the partnership and in the day-to-day business of the project, but they are interested in the outputs and outcome of the project, and they can help in strategic communication on the project. And they are basically observers interested in what the project does. They don't have a budget, and for that reason, they also don't have a controller. The only thing is the project partnership can budget some travel and accommodation cost if they plan to invite associated organizations to project meetings. And then those are going to be controlled and monitored by the controller of one of the partners. And because associated organizations are remote and not actively involved in the partnership, they also don't sign the partnership agreement. And now moving on to my last part. So how to structure a Northwest Europe project. What does a Northwest Europe project deliver? Here you see, I'm not quite sure if I'm moving this thing around, sorry. This is what we call the project intervention logic, but you could also just say the structure of your application form. So you see on the left side, you have the need for the project, the challenge that you're going to address. And on the right side, you have the resolution of the challenge and the benefit that comes out of it for society. So this is what the project is about. And in between, you specify, you define one project-specific objective, which you can divide into a maximum of 3 specific objectives that will lead to 3 different project results. And this is what you're going to have to describe in a step 1 application. If you move on to step 2, you're going to fill in the middle part here. You go into detail on how you're going to implement or address those specific objectives. You detail the work packages and the deliverables and the outputs. And now, I'll focus on the outputs and the results and give you a bit of an idea of how they look in our program. So we have 3 different kinds of outputs. Essentially, and a Northwest Europe project has to address 2 of them, 2 out of 3 as a minimum. I would say the majority address the 3 of them because they can nicely link together and form a good package, but it's a minimum of 2. So first off, we have strategies and action plans. That's the output, that's the document that you deliver. And then the result is that it's taken up by organization and actually used and implemented. Secondly, you have pilot actions leading to solutions. They're in 2 circles here because, that's the structure of our indicators, but they count as 1. So many projects test a solution or test a technology in real-life environment. And if it goes through, if it's successful, it's a viable solution that again can be taken up by organizations. That's what we aim for. And number 3 are joint training schemes. Here projects develop training schemes together for different target groups. And then again, the aim is that organizations actually participate in the training scheme because our final goal is that organizations improve their capacity thanks to transnational cooperation. And this is an indicator, this is our final indicator that we aim for, and it counts for, it's the result of all 3 strands here. So training, solutions taken up, and strategies and action plans taken up. And you find the detailed definitions of the indicators in our program manual at the very end in the annex. It's very important to have a look at it, because there are specific details projects need to follow. And I think that's it. That's it from my side.
Perfect. Thanks, Helena.
Welcome.
So thank you for providing that overview of the funding, the basics, and thanks to everyone who's using the Q&A button there for the questions. Please keep doing that. We're trying to keep them by using the Q&A button because it could be too many places to look if we're also using the chat, but we do have people reading through the Q&A questions that are going through that button in the top of Teams. You can see it there. Lorraine is monitoring for those questions and she's going to ask Helena and I your questions in about 10-15 minutes. So now look, as the national contact point, I'm going to take you quickly just through a few slides which highlight what Interreg Northwest Europe as a funder considers to be a good project. So look, I'm going to just share my screen. Hopefully you can see that. Is that okay, Elena? If you could just confirm, please.
Yes, I can see it.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. So look, first, so to pick up from where Elena left off, look, Elena took you through the basics of this funding, what is required for eligibility, the type of priority area that you're going to choose. And I just wanted to say a few words about the specificities of this type of funding, this regional development funding, compared to other types of funding that you might be more used to, for example, in the research world. So look, a big topic for what they're looking for in these projects is what they call territoriality. And really what that means is that your project will solve a problem that exists across various places in Northwest Europe. So you have this joint challenge that you identify that your project will solve, and also that it has this regional link, as in there's a commonality around the type of place that you're going to roll out your actions. So perhaps they have things in common, that they are all rural, or they're all urban, or they're all peri-urban, that are similar sized cities. So that if you're working on a project that's focused on vacancy rates in Kilkenny City, that you're perhaps looking for similar size, similar type of town, similar problems with vacancy rates in the other places. So you have this thread and this link between the different places that are working together on the project. In terms of the problems that Northwest Europe as a region faces, the EU has done, and the programme have done, some analysis. It's called territorial analysis, that you can access on our website, and you can see that that's very much the big picture of some problems that the programme and the member states believe need to be tackled. And of course, the EU itself has a lot of statistics available in Eurostat, and even regional policy information and different maps that you can access. These are all very high level. You are the experts in your project area, so you'll have access perhaps to much more detailed and more regional and more local information and statistics to justify why your project is needed in these places. So it is an important aspect of this type of funding. Linked to the territoriality is cooperation. We're looking to see so you have minimum three partners from 3 different countries, but they need to be all necessary to achieve the project objective. And you need to prove that there's a need for these projects to work together to tackle the challenge, that it's not something you can do locally with local funding. Why bother doing this across 3 countries? You kind of have to justify that. And then in the design of your work plan, they want to see that the project partners are all working together on each of the jointly developed outputs, and that you're jointly benefiting from the results of the project, and that you're learning from each other as partners. The impact of your project, we're also looking to see what this project will contribute to the programme's objectives. Those are the fact sheets that Elena mentioned earlier. That's really a good starting point for step 1 proposals. And they also want to see how this project will build on existing practices and work that's being done already. It's, we're not necessarily looking for something completely new, but if you can just recognize what's already been done and how this project might build on that, or add scale it up to a different location, or bring it to a different type of sector. So there's lots of ways to build on work that's already been done. You need to have a clear understanding of who your target groups are, who will really benefit from this project. Will it be the public sector, that they'll have better access to improve services for the citizens through the public sector improvements? Would it be the private sector, more innovation, better markets, improved value chains? Will it be civil society actors, or even, of course, research institutions, academia generally? And a very important aspect at step 1 as well is to show that how your project will have long-term effects. So that means not simply how the project will be able to continue once the money stops, but also what could be the longer-term impacts. Are you going to get your idea scaled up and built into policy, perhaps, or that it's that some public authorities might make a commitment to keep going with your project approach into the future? So those are the kind of long-term effects we're looking to see. In terms of the application process for step 1 in Call 5, so Call is open now, so you could actually open up the Word application. You can go into the online system and have a look at it. The deadline is the 16th of January in 2025. That's a hard deadline. It's at 11 o'clock in the morning, Irish time. All the details for Call 5 are available on the website if you want to look at the details. Passing step 1, as Elena said, it's more of a concept note. You need to have clear your intervention logic and who your partners are and what specific objective you're going for and what your project will deliver. You do not need to provide the in-depth detail of the work packages, the activities, the deliverables, or even the in-depth information on the budget. At step 1, the budget is just a single figure. So you will find out if you pass to step 2 around March, April. And then you'll have a couple of months until the 10th of July, where you will then work together as a consortium to fill in those missing details on the work packages, on the budget, and so on. And the deadline for step 2 will be July 2025. So you'll find out pretty soon whether or not your project idea will pass to step 2 by March, April. If your project is successful at step 2, you'll be notified and your project can start, we estimate, by November 2025. So that would be the start date if you're working backwards then in terms of your expenditure. The submission has to be done online through the Joint Electronic Monitoring System. It's called GEMS. There's the link. You can open it now already and set up your project idea if you want. There's a user guide available. This is a system used by all the different Interreg funds, not only Interreg Northwest Europe. So you might have used it before, you might be familiar. But anyway, it's no harm to go in early and set up an account for yourself or for your organization. This is what it looks like, the online system. There's different sections corresponding to the sections of the application form in step 1. So have a look there. It's important to do the pre-submission check. The fact that you pass, you fill in all those pieces there on the left with your different character numbers and so on. There's a lot of limits and there's no formatting permitted. And then you can do your pre-submission check. It doesn't guarantee that it's eligible. It's only checking to see if you filled in the obligatory sections, but it doesn't, the system cannot read to say if you've done it correctly. So you need to be ensured yourself that you fulfill all those eligibility criteria that Elena mentioned earlier and that are clearly available on the website for Call 5. And I'd also recommend, because it's much easier to work with, that you take a look at the Word version of this application form on the website. So often you might work in the Word version, and when it's ready, then you would copy paste over into the online system. Final hints and tips. You know, it does take time to identify a common challenge across these 3 countries and to research existing projects and to justify the problem that you're going to solve. So even though the step 1, the concept note is quite short, it's not a lot of pages, the application form, but it takes a bit of thinking, bit of strategy to understand where you're going with your project idea. So that's worth taking the time to think it over in these months. You also need time to choose the correct partnership, as Elena pointed out. Do you have the right target groups to really achieve what you want to do? And crucially, to help your project go along in the long-term effects. The drafting, yes, it's short. It's in English. We have an advantage there being native English speakers. But the character limits can be a real challenge. So, you know, take a bit of time to whittle it down and to use your words wisely. The abstract of your project idea, they call it the project summary, that has a character limit and it must be translated into 3 different languages. And that's something you shouldn't leave until the last minute. Your project partners will help you do that before submission, and that is obligatory. Again, take time to log into that online submission system, get to know what it looks like, and to try and write in a clear way. So to get support, there are some key documents available on the website. The Interreg program document goes into great depth about the territorial challenges, about the areas that the program wishes to fund. The program manual gives you details on eligibility rules, on the budget and so on. And territorial analysis, I've already mentioned, has a lot of interesting statistics to justify why your project might be needed. Other guidance documents, more about how to apply. the specific objective fact sheets, Elena mentioned them earlier, each of those pillars that you need to choose one of them. And the fact sheets are a really good place to start to have a look to see if your project fits what they want to fund. We have a frequently asked questions section on the website, good place to start as well. The intervention logic infographic is also quite helpful. We have the application form in Word, which I already mentioned. So there's our website, the homepage, and from there you can reach all of these important documents. In terms of more personalized support, we have an Irish Partners mailing list, and my colleague Lorraine might drop into the chat there when she gets a minute, the link that you can sign up to the Irish Partners mailing list. And in there you can add your keywords, and that will allow me to find you if I am approached by other contact points from other countries where a consortium is looking for partners in Ireland in a particular field of expertise. So that's a really good idea to be signed up there if you're want to put yourself out there to join as a project partner. And of course, it also signs you up to receive the newsletter, which promotes events like the ones we have coming up in Croke Park, like this webinar today. And naturally, you can also reach out to me as the national contact point, and we can set up a meeting to discuss your project idea, especially if you're going to be the lead partner. But actually, I can also help you out if you're being invited to join a consortium and you want to ask any questions about that. So yeah, please sign up also for the Interreg Northwest Europe newsletter that is run from the Joint Secretariat. That's a newsletter sent to all the different countries, so all the same information. They are available also on social media, so you have their LinkedIn and X. Finding partners is a challenge, of course. We have also got an online community. You can sign up here. There's a link in the chat again. Thank you to Lorraine. You can sign up here. You can put up like an abstract of your project idea, and people might reach out to you if they wish to join your consortium. And likewise, you can browse the other organizations that are looking for partners to join their project. So it's a really interesting place to see what others are doing. Sometimes you might see a project in a very similar field, and you could even try to work together to merge the project idea and join the partnership, or agree kind of that you could share some partners or key stakeholders, but that you're both going in different directions. So it's a really interesting place to have a look around to find partners. I'd also like to highlight an upcoming event that we're going to have in Ireland in Croke Park in the 5th and 6th of November. You can sign up again. There's going to be a link put into the chat where you can register. That is going to be a 1.5 day event, quite useful for those applying to Call 5 because you can put a poster of your project idea and people will be able to walk around to look at all the different posters, and you might find partners in that way. It's very good for networking. And likewise, you can walk around and look at posters of project ideas and offer your organization to join a partnership. It's also nice as an experience to see, because we'll have poster and exhibition also for running and existing projects that have already been successful. So that can be really nice for you to see what a project looks like. We'll also have speakers describing how best you can improve your application for the January deadline. And on the second day, there will be a stakeholder consultation in relation to the future of Interreg Northwest Europe and all the different Interregs under cohesion policy funding, where you can have your say on how the European Commission might wish to spend the money into the future in terms of regional development funding. So yeah, it's a very interesting day. I'd encourage all Irish applicants to go. It's not always held in Ireland, these events. Last year was in France, in Paris. The year before was in Germany. So it's something to take advantage of while it's so close to home. So please do take a look at that. So I think that's it for the moment. We might have a few questions. You have my email there for anyone who would like to just take a quick note of it and reach out to me on a one-to-one. I might ask Lorraine and Elena to turn back on the cameras and see if we have any questions that you might like to put to Elena and I.
Definitely. So there's loads of questions coming in. If we don't get to them all today, I'm sure Sarah, Elena and David will all answer them in their own time. But yeah, plenty of questions there coming in. So I'd say maybe Sarah, you could answer. There is a question from Maria. Is there any progress on co-funding opportunities from the government? It is the greatest barrier for many entities, especially from the higher education.
Yes, Maria, a really pertinent question and something that comes up quite a lot in Ireland. So yes, the co-financing rate is 40% for these projects. So for your 100% budget, the EU will give you 60% and the partner has to bring 40%. There's different ways of doing that. It can be done through staff time, for example. A lot of the universities in particular use this solution. It can be done through other grants that you might have from different sources. So for example, from a county council, local authority grant, or for another research grant that you could use to match and to fill the gap, from public donations or philanthropic donations from the private sector even. You might approach a private company that could have an interest in the outputs or the results of your project, and they might be willing to donate some cash to the partners to fulfill that 40% requirement. So look, there's a lot of solutions available. It can be a mix of all of those solutions. We can have a chat ourselves directly if you have a particular challenge that you want to discuss or a solution that you want to see if it's okay. I'd be happy to do that. But yeah, it certainly is a challenge for all the Irish participants, not only the research institutions. I saw another question in the chat from William Farrelly regarding maybe the not-for-profits or the smaller entities that might be more interested in that priority 5 area of access to health and employment and sustainable tourism. So there might be smaller organizations applying there. It is certainly a challenge for them, yes. Look, from our side in the Southern Regional Assembly, we have put in a budget submission together with Access Europe and the Wheel, asking the government to consider a co-financing pot for civil society actors in particular. But we won't, of course, know if that's a success until the budget. But please feel free to keep pressure on your local TDs about this matter. So a co-financing pot would certainly be beneficial to all Irish partners. Yeah. Thanks, Lorraine.
Okay, thank you. So then the next question we have from Yavid, and it says, should we secure the 40% local funding before the call?
Shall I answer that, Elaine, as well, since it's still co-financing? Look, it's not necessary to show at step 1 any details on the co-financing, but it is probably a good idea that you are clear that you can do this, because otherwise you might put in a lot of effort at step 2 and not be able to proceed. So the advice is to try and identify the sources as soon as you can. Yeah. Thanks, Lorraine.
Excellent, thank you. So we'll just keep going. Then it's kind of private non-profit organization lead on a project as opposed to public non-profit.
As long as you're not profit making, it's okay. The eligibility criteria says profit-making organizations can never be a lead partner. Application forms with such a lead partner are ineligible. But if you're not profit-making, it's fine. You're an NGO and you can lead the project.
Okay, that's great. And we might then follow on with this question then, which are our project partners not in the Northwest Europe region eligible for funding?
I'll let you take that, Elena.
Project partners not in Northwest Europe, but within the EU, yes, because the pot we draw from is the EU Regional Development Fund. So it also counts for other countries and regions within the EU. But if you're asking for the UK, no, they cannot be project partners. They can be associated partner organizations.
Okay, thanks very much, Elena. Next we have, what level of funding is available for pilot actions? That would be less than 10K of a partner budget, etc.
Sorry, say that again, Lorraine. What level of funding?
What level of funding is available for pilot actions? I.e. less than 10K of a partner project or partner budget.
Okay, so look, I think first of all, it's important to be aware that this type of funding, it's actually quite large scale. So typically the partner budgets would be higher than even 10,000, maybe into the hundreds of thousands would be the more typical size. There's no set rule on the costs of a pilot. So a pilot action for Interreg Northwest Europe could be, you know, you imagine a project that uses a new type of material to do retrofitting for a building, and then they install monitors to measure air quality over time. So doing that work and gathering the data from the monitoring will produce information for the project, and that would be an example of a pilot. So the pilot action could involve a number of different tasks, and that could, depending on the action, that could have different costs. So there's no set rule actually for the costs of the pilot. I think that it's important, maybe do have a look at our program manual to understand what this type of fund understands when they speak about pilots. An important point is that they have to be jointly designed and jointly rolled out in the projects. And the scope of a typical pilot could be to test procedures or new instruments or tools, or to experiment, or to transfer a practice. So, and the other point on the pilots is that in order to be counted as a pilot action, as an indicator, it needs to be not only designed and developed, but it needs to be completed during the life of the project. So yeah, there's quite a few requirements around pilot actions for this Interreg Northwest Europe funding. You can see the full details in the program manual.
May I add something there?
Yeah.
Because we do get quite a few project suggestions which suggest a pilot on one site in one country, and that will benefit solely that region or that location, and that's not what we fund. So it's, as Sarah already said, it's about cooperation and developing and implementing solutions that benefit everyone. Of course, in the local context, of course, but also beyond.
Okay, thanks very much, girls. And then the next one then, is there bridging finance available for step 2?
Okay, so I can take this, Elena. Look, there is no bridging finance. The short answer is no. There is no bridging finance available upfront for those that proceed to step 2. However, there is some good news that if your project is funded, you can get the preparation costs up to 50,000 euros in preparation costs is awarded to the lead partner, and they can use that to pay back perhaps travel costs that people might have incurred in the preparation of step 2 going to meetings, to meet together in different countries, or even sometimes a consultant that might have been hired to do some writing. So it's a bit of a gamble because you only get that money for the preparation costs if you are successful, but there's no upfront bridging.
Also, because we have a 60% co-financing rate, you would it's 50,000 euros in card costs, and of that 60% get reimbursed. So
yeah, sorry, good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So next then we have, are pilot actions compulsory in this program call?
So as Elena pointed out in her slides, you have to choose 2 out of 3 outputs. So the options are to deliver a joint strategy action plan, or to deliver a pilot which will have a solution leading to a solution, or training and capacity building. So it is possible to submit a project without what we understand to be a pilot or a solution. I'd say sometimes, I haven't seen too many, but it is technically possible, yeah.
Excellent. And then we will go to, can the consortium change between step 1 and step 2?
Okay, Elena.
Yes, it can change, no problem. But the lead partner has to stay the same, I think. Sarah, can you? I'm at a loss.
No, the lead partner can change as well, actually.
Can change as well.
Yeah. Quite flexible.
The partnership can change. But I think the rule is that 2 or 3 partners have to stay the same. That was it. But otherwise, very flexible.
Okay, great. And is proof of 40% matched funding required at concept note stage?
So yeah, so I already referred to this there at the first question. We don't look for the details of the budget or the co-financing at step 1. So the budget at step 1, it's a single figure for the whole project. So you might be 4 million, 5 million. We don't look at all for any details at step 1. At step 2, you will be required to provide information on your budget and therefore information on the co-financing. And just while we're on that, I see a question there from Declan Rice about whether co-funding can have an EU component. And indeed, that's a good question, because you cannot match with another EU grant. So you can use local authority grants, Irish funding, but you can't match with another EU project. That's important to remember. Yeah. Thanks, Lorraine. I think we're nearly ready to pass over to David. We might take one more question, Lorraine, if there is. Oh, it's just on mute.
Sorry, guys, there, just 1 second. The most recent question then that's just come through here is, can we ask for more detail on what co-funding types are eligible and non-eligible?
Yeah, we can have a chat about that on a one-to-one if you're ready to progress with your project idea. Yeah, happy to support. Yeah, I think, would you like to go for any more questions, or maybe that's all the questions done, or will we pass over to David?
No, I think we can pass over to David. There's a few crossover type questions there as well, and like that, anything that we haven't fully got to, we can get to afterwards. So thanks.
Yeah, so as Lorraine says, I do commit to taking all the questions, and I will send an email afterwards to those that ask the questions. With as long as you registered with your email address, you'll receive the answers to your questions. So thank you very much. So look, that was a nice little bit of Q&A. I'll pass over to David, who might have a few words to say in conclusion. And with that, I'll sign off myself. So thank you, David.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Look, a lot of information there, definitely a lot of questions, a lot of interaction. You know, there is a lot in terms of preparing these applications, in working with partners, and getting your applications across the line. So look, first of all, I just say, look, reach out to Sarah, reach out to the JS, reach out for support, because there is plenty of help and support there to assist you through it. Look, obviously match funding is an issue. There are certain ways around it. As Sarah said, we have jointly within a submission, a pre-budget submission. We'll have to see where that lands. You know, if we can get that one across the line, it's possible that it's something that could be expanded in years to come going forward. But obviously, the first challenge is getting something like that across the line. But look, as I said, it's important that you reach out to Sarah, reach out to the JS, reach out for support in right throughout the process when you're building your consortium, when you're building the application form and putting together. And look, I just reiterate a couple of points that I made earlier. Look, Ireland has always done very, very well through Interreg, through cohesion funding, through Northwest Europe in particular. We have some really good experienced partners, some really good project ideas, some really good organizations, you know, across the spectrum, from universities to businesses to the community sector. So, you know, it's important that we build on that and we continue, I suppose, accessing the funds to make an impact at the local level. And look, as I said, it's getting the funding is really important. It really helps in delivering on the objectives that you want to deliver on. But equally as important is the partnerships and the networks and the collaboration that you build up. In a lot of cases, they last a lot longer than the project itself, and it does lead to a whole raft of other opportunities through this program and through other programs. So look, I really would urge you to continue to participate. You know, this is the 5th call of the Northwest Europe program. Maybe I'm wrong here, but likely to be the last open call. So I would urge you to participate and get involved. And look, I'd like to thank you all for your active participation today. I think the questions were really good. I'd like to thank Lorraine for fielding the questions and for moderating the chat and organising the session in the background. Thanks to Helena for participating from the JS, and also to Sarah for sharing her experience. And again, just to reiterate that Sarah and the JS are available for you know, to hear from you all as you work through the process. So look, with that, I'll sign off, and thanks to everyone for participating today.
Thanks, David. Okay, I hope to hear from you all with your great ideas. Okay, thanks, Elena. Bye.